Hey guys, how's it going? Today's video is going to be sort of a freestyle developer blog, I guess, whatever the hell people call it. So I've been posting a lot of crap relating to this game that me and a buddy have been making. Obviously, there's no context to what it's been on there. It's just been a lot of weird rpgmaker shit, and everyone's probably like, what the hell is this? So this is kind of an explanation of what all this crap is. Me and a buddy decided we're going to go, hey, let's make a freaking video game, right? And that's exactly what we're doing. That's really the story. I'm kind of trying to focus on writing out the story, filling out the world with the lore and all this. The idea of the story is that there's this dude, and he's a video game streamer, and he decides, hey, I'm gonna check out this brand new VR game. It's pretty cool. It's been on my radar for a while, and maybe be fun to stream. So he does that. So he buys this game. He plugs it in. Unknowing to him, he gets sent to this parallel world, right? The standard isekai anime crap. But he doesn't quite realize he's actually been transported to another world. So he kind of treats it like, you know, it's a freaking video game. I don't care about these people. And in the world is kind of a basic generic, oh, there's a demon lord going around killing people and shit. So obviously he's got to have some kind of superpower, and he's the main guy that's going to go around and actually solve the problem. But at first, he doesn't really care about what's happening. You know, he starts off kind of like a dick, kind of like the Rising of the Shield Hero, only instead of the world treating him like shit, he's treating the world like shit. And it's kind of a super serious, I wouldn't say like edgy, but you know, there's going to be a lot of death. It's a pretty terrible world to live in. And the character that summons him is doing so because it's she's in a desperate situation. Everybody's constantly dying. There are these random demons just going around killing people, destroying stuff, and it's like, it's a world full of nothing but war and death. And so, well, what you're seeing in the background is just me trying to handle lighting and shadows, try to make it look good, since that's eventually going to be the goal. Anyways, back to what I was saying. So he's in this world, and he's going to come to realize that he's actually going to give a crap. You know, he sees all these people suffering, and he's thinking to himself, I'm not going to be able to leave this world until I do whatever I'm supposed to do, because he's going to find out that he can't actually leave. Like, he's stuck there. And so what the player is going to do is you're going to have to travel the entire world and take out 12 demons, and then finally the demon lord himself. Now, in my mind, I have a beginning to the story and an end. I don't have everything in between, so I'm kind of just winging it, and that probably isn't the best approach, but for me, I think it works because there's no rules. Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, just this character can't do this, or like they have to be here at this time in this frame, and it's like, no, I don't want to do that. I want the player to be able to traverse the world in whatever fashion they want. Obviously, there's going to be a starting point, and then eventually I want it to branch out so that the player can choose in which order they want to do things. So there's obviously going to be 12 that they're going to have to beat, but you know, you can fight number 7 first, you can fight 8 first, or whatever. You can choose where to go after you finish, you know, the first continent, which is kind of going to be like a linear hand holding thing. So yeah, that's basically the story. It's pretty simple. I feel that gives us a lot of room to kind of expand on it, because my problem is these isekai animes, they never take the perspective of someone who's actually played a freaking video game. It's always written where they got this super overpowered ability, they one-shot everything, you know, they're Mary Sue's and all that shit, and that's just boring to watch. And then like, he's surrounded by all these hot chicks, and like, not a single at no point does he decide, hey, I want to bang you. He's just like, oh my god, they're so cute, and I can't do anything. Nah. Well, we're giving the player the ability to choose between being either male or female, and I'm kind of going to kind of operating that the man is kind of a dick, and the chick is more of a not so much of a dick. He's obviously going to be flirting and making jokes and stuff. And since I'm a fan of Farscape, I kind of wanted to incorporate this idea that, you know, he's in this strange new place, and he's going to be homesick and making references to his home, but the way I planned that was, it's essentially going to take music lyrics, throw them in randomly out of nowhere, And the whole time the characters are going to be like, what the hell is this guy saying? But it's like, that's his way of coping of his new reality. So yeah, right now that's our goal, is just kind of flesh out the story for at least a demo within the next month or two. I don't know how long that's going to take. It's my first time doing this crap, and my buddy's handling all the music and sound design. I have no idea how long that's going to take. But anyways, the first part of the game is going to be the main character is summoned by this princess, and she gets exiled from her nation because, you know, you can't do that shit. You can't be summoning people. That's like against the law. And so they have to leave. And in this world, there is no technology per se, like there's no computers and whatnot, but they do have magic that essentially acts like technology. Like, I'm sure the last cutscene that I placed, you see that there was like a kind of an invisible dude there. You know, it's instead of having like a telephone or computer screen monitor, it's like a magical hologram, so people can essentially be in two places at once and kind of like talk and all that. Because like, yeah, that's kind of, I feel like that's a little bit more interesting. The steampunk is kind of overplayed. The modern technology is kind of overplayed. I feel like incorporating magic as technology would be a cool thing, because the angle that I'm going for is that kind of like in Final Fantasy VII, where the Mako energy is the life force of the planet, the magic force that they use for the technology is the same thing. That's why there's that big ass desert in the middle of nowhere that you have to go through at the start of the game, because that's a very magic focused empire. Every time they use magic, they have to take it from somewhere, and the more that they use it, the more life they essentially take from around them. So what used to be a nice beautiful jungle full of trees and life is now this empty ass desert with freaking shy haloods running around. But as of this posting, for the 3 people that are actually watching this crap, thank you, by the way. Shit, what was I gonna say? Well, anyways, right now I haven't actually touched on anything battle wise. The focus is going to be on having a solid story and lore to go with, and then from there we can flesh out the battles and have a whole bunch of interesting mechanics and stuff to go on. The eventual plan is to have this specific trait for the main character where he can summon enemy, or he can capture enemy creatures, kind of like a Pokemon style thing, and then once you capture them, they can be part of your party. But rpgmaker has kind of a really stupid limitation with how they do player handling and characters and all that. So in order to do that, I can't just clone a copy of a character. I have to actually make a single character for that, and I have an idea of how to do that, but it's just going to be a general pain in the ass to work with. But in the same token, that same ability can use to calm down your characters, because we're going to have this interesting little debuff mechanic where if you attack a character of the same exact race as your player or your character, they get a debuff that can stack. It'll increase their attack power, but also make it so they could randomly decide to target you as well. Kind of like a berserker mode thing, and you're going to have to use that same ability to capture them to calm your team members down. So it'll add this layer of, say, do you want to be slightly stronger but more chaotic, or do you want to just stay at 100% control? I think that'll add an interesting layer to fights. I'm also planning on adding in some kind of combo abilities with multiple characters, because we're going to have a lot of characters. The idea is there's like 5 or 6 different continents, and on each one, for each demon section, you're eventually going to be getting like maybe 2 or 3 characters to play around with, and that way the player again will have the ability to choose who they get to play with. Do you want to have a team of all magic or all melee? Do you want to just have one? Do you want to capture a whole bunch and use only them? Because I'm sort of the opinion that the more the player can do, the better. Like, I'm not gonna handhold you and say, oh, you have to do exactly this. You have to do this exact mechanic at this exact time, or you just instantly die. That kind of shit's boring to me. It's like I don't no, dude, I don't really think that's particularly good design. That's kind of boring. Like, you should be offering the player many different routes to take to get to the end, and then you should also encourage maybe using specific characters for specific fights. Because the way the rpgmaker system works, since we're using VX Ace, is there's this attribute called states. I feel like there's a lot you can do with that. Just instead of having like poison, paralysis, and all that crap, you could add in your own sort of, you know, this is a male, this is a female, and this character will only target males, this one will only target females. Because one of the coolest things is in Final Fantasy VII, Rude will never punch Tifa. It's one of those things that you have no idea was an actual mechanic. You just think that, you know, he's got a crush on her, but he'll never punch the shit out of her. So if she's in your fight when you ever fight Rude, he's only going to beat the shit out of the other two guys, which I find hilarious. I want to use a mechanic like that in a fight. As far as map design is concerned, that one's kind of a weird thing because VX Ace has a really shitty style of layering. For some strange reason, certain tiles will not stack on the other ones. So like, hey, I got this roof, I've got this chimney, I can't put that chimney on the roof because for some reason that's the same layer, and so you have this fucking weird looking chimney jutting out of the ground instead of on the roof where it belongs. So there's going to be a lot of custom designing with the assets. I honestly have no idea how long that's going to take, so for now I've kind of just been modeling shit together and just hoping that it looks presentable. The original idea was having multiple different maps. I feel like that kind of breaks the flow of the game, so I decided to just sort of make one big ass map and put them all together. So instead of the forest zone having like 7 different map transitions, you only got one, but at the same time that means players going to be running around a lot, getting into a lot of random battles, and I don't know how annoying that's going to be, so that's going to need a lot of tweaking. But there's really a lot I can do with these custom default assets, along with Photoshop and the whatever million shits that I bought from a Humble Bundle somewhere for like $10 or whatever. So, you know, I think I'm pretty confident in my ability that I'm good at compositing. I'm not good at original creations. Like I can't just instantly draw down a picture of a dragon, but I can copy paste pieces from different dragons and make it kind of look cool and presentable. Of course, I'm also colorblind, so that's kind of a pain in the ass to get shit working. It's fun. I think I'm managing. For monsters and character portraits, we've decided to go with AI, and that's, you know, I think that's working out pretty damn well. With the various prompts, we can come up with really interesting looking monsters, and then we can just pixelize it using a different AI. Character portraits, we can tweak the hell out of those and make them look good. Of course, AI is not perfect, and there are obvious mistakes. So that means for the hands specifically, I'm probably going to have to manually change that myself most of the time. And because I'm not an artist, that's going to be kind of difficult, but not impossible. And for the character faces, it's usually something simple, like maybe the eyes are a different color and one eye is like staring off in the distance and one's looking straight at you with the freaking weird ass lazy eye. Another one is just adding a mask to the faceplate on the helmet. Really simple stuff. And then that goes to what's going on in the background of this video: shading. Most of the default assets don't actually have good shadows or color shading or to anything. They're just like these really bright looking pictures. I'm not saying they're bad, they definitely look okay. So I'm gonna have to do manual touch-ups in GIMP and Photoshop, or I don't have Photoshop, I got GIMP. Cut that part out. So using GIMP, I'm gonna have to manually create shadows, and again, VX Ace engine is kind of a pain in the ass in this regard. It does not have multiple layers. So that means in order for me to actually do something that looks interesting, I'm gonna have to abuse a couple little workarounds that I found. Number one is pictures. Yanfly has this script add-on that can lock parallax for pictures. Now, if you don't use rpgmaker, then you have no idea what I'm saying. Essentially, a picture is kind of like an overlay. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's just a picture that gets displayed in the engine. Now, it doesn't seem to actually scale down said image. So if you got something that's bigger than the default 640 by whatever the hell, it's gonna be, you know, just cut off at some point. And the default engine doesn't actually move the picture, it stays locked into the position that you're currently at. So say you have a 1280 by whatever and it's centered exactly at the top of the screen, you're only going to see the portion that's within that 640 518 frame. And whenever you move, it's going to move with you, so you're going to see that 640 by 518 frame no matter where you go. But Yanfly has this plugin where it can lock that image, so I can lock it to a corner and then I could just have it display the picture. Now the cool thing about that is that picture will be overlaid over the entire screen, and if you move, it moves with you. It doesn't move with you, so it stays locked to that corner. So I can cheese that and use that as sort of a fake shadow effect. I can have it as a locked picture up in the corner and have it display over the entire map. Of course, this comes with a problem, is that I have to do this for every single map. That doesn't sound too bad, because, you know, it's not like this game's gonna have 300, 400 different maps to deal with. The real issue is that apparently VxAce loads all these images constantly into your RAM. So whenever it needs to get some sort of image data, it can pull it out pretty much immediately. And since we're going to be saving them as PNG files, you know, you're looking at 200 to 300 copies of something that's around, what, like 400 kilobytes or whatever. That's going to add up pretty quickly. So the more images you actually have, the more it's going to be loaded into RAM, and the more taxing it's going to be on the average computer. Obviously, that's probably not going to be a problem for most people, because, you know, what the hell is 1 or 2 gigabytes, right? The real problem is VxAce also runs on one core. Only one core, apparently. So there's no GPU acceleration, there's no multi-core processing. All that shit's going to be stress loaded onto one single processor. It's still early, I don't know how bad that's going to get. It's just something that, you know, to lose sleep over, I guess. So what's the plan for battles? Well, I've seen sprites using a content creator or LPC generator. It's the same free default shit that like every shitty RPG maker you've seen uses. I mean, it looks okay. I mean, the dude's like missing a pelvis and he's just got like these weird little stubs for legs. It fucking looks weird. Like, it looks weird. I'm not to mention the hairstyles are, holy shit, they're bad. There's like no variety there. So I opted to actually make my own. I'm kind of trying to copy the style from the early Final Fantasy games, because I think that looks the better than the shitty LPC general ones. Ugh. Plus, you know, they're not the right size. They're like 48 by 48 or whatever, and the default size for VxAce is 32. So that's why the main character is like twice as tall as everybody else, because I haven't actually bothered making one for everybody else, because the hairstyle choices are dog shit. Like, they don't have any variety, and they just kind of look like shit for the ones that are already there. Plus, there's a lot of accessories that don't quite match up. So, you know, if you want some shit done right, you gotta do it yourself, right? So I kind of made my own style, and that's gonna take a while. So much to do. But the plan is to figure out how to use Yami's Battle Symphony engine, I think that's what it's called, because that one is essentially its own programming language. However, the tutorials for it are just non-existent, and the ones that were made for it used images on the rpgmaker web forum, and they didn't store the images, so I have absolutely no fucking idea what they use for commands and how to do things. So I'm essentially going to have to learn an entirely new programming language all on my own. Because what I basically want to do is just have a character. He stands in battle. You see his sprite. He's got his weapon out. He's vibing. He's ready to beat some shit. Then has another animation where he dashes to the enemy. An animation where they use the attack or skill or whatever. And then an animation where they jump back to their original position. And then an image where they get hit. An image where they dodge. Image where they have low HP, and an image when they're readying an ability or a spell, and maybe a victory pose. Who cares? I don't know. That alone isn't really that much. Like, it's really not hard to do once you have, you know, like a GIMP file and you have them. I wouldn't call it an exploded view, but more like each part is on its own layer, so you can easily manipulate, you know, the arm swing in one direction, the leg, and all that. The hardest part is probably going to be coming up with hairstyles to match the images that we use for the character portraits. And yeah, that might be the most difficult part, to be honest, because my idea is that I have access to DaVinci Resolve, and that's a pretty solid video editor. I can use that to create these custom animations for the character abilities, because I feel like if you can make something flashy, people will be a little bit more interested in what you're making. instead of just having some weird shitty default blade swinging animation 10 times in a row and calling that shit Omni Slash. Like, really, dude? No, no. I mean, I'm impressed that you made it and all, but it's like, that's not that great. You know, it's like writing a Hello World program and being like, oh shit, I'm a master hacker now. I mentioned that we're using AI for the monsters and character portraits. The cool thing about that is the character portraits, you don't actually have to see their hands. So as long as they have the good face in view, yes, that's good. But we're not using AI for telling the story. That's been all me, and not to toot my own horn, but I think I'm pretty decent at it. I just don't want to fall into the pitfall where everybody seems to need to have every single fucking character throw out a quip or be a general smartass every waking goddamn moment. So I'm gonna have to try to balance between, you know, LOL, I'm so funny, and like super serious, super story time, and then edgy tryhard shit, right? Spelling errors and all that grammar, I think I'm fine. Don't think that's gonna be a major problem. Trying to keep the characters with their own sort of thematic style of speaking. You know, like the knight's gonna be talking like you would expect a knight to be talking. The princess is gonna be all high and mighty, but not necessarily condescending. Someone who's like had a very, you know, traditional background, educational, that kind of thing. Where the main character is gonna be like a shitty little tweener who's like, I'm a streamer, guys. You know, that kind of shit. But eventually they're gonna mature, obviously, and maybe their mannerisms will rub off on the other characters that have been around long enough. Definitely gonna be having a lot of references. So far, the major one, I guess I decided to tie it to some kind of side quest or something later, is there's a set of graves that you can find in the game, and each one's going to be a character from a TV show that's pretty near and dear to me. Reboot. So, you know, if you see a grave, go check it out, and maybe you'll find something like Mike's grave, because I know there's a lot of people who watch Reboot and want Mike to die. You know, the TV. And I think the biggest challenge is probably going to be making the maps. As you can see, I'm not particularly good at it yet. Like, this entire thing has taken a grand total of like 6 or 7 hours. I'm still not good at it. There's just, I have to do this strange mix of mapping things in the engine and mapping some of it in GIMP, because again, the engine does a really shitty job of layering. And there's a lot of custom assets that look weird and would be better if it's, you know, were combined. Like if you look at the armor, the helmet and the armor were two separate things. I decided to put them together because, you know, that kind of looks cooler. Like you go to an armor shop, you see an armor with a helmet on top of it, you probably find something like that, right? And again, since I'm not an artist, there's also the wizard cloak and the wizard hat. I wouldn't be particularly good at rotating the hat around so you could be seeing it from like from the front of the hat. So I just kind of flipped it sideways, angled it down a little bit, and stuck it on there. It's kind of lazy, but you know, I'm just not that good. For the shadowing, that one was kind of a weird thing. That took me a few hours because I was kind of doing it the lazy way with just taking a bunch of images and painting a new black layer on top of it. And I found out that the erase tool has an opacity setting, so you can soften out the edges. But that's sort of what we're going to be doing with the maps. Is they're going to have that mix of base assets, which are probably mostly custom recolorings of things. Because if you'll notice, I made the spears a little bit bluer or purple, whatever. I don't fucking know. Because I kind of wanted the theme of this kingdom to be like blue, bluish, maybe purples, to kind of distinguish it from the other kingdom. There's definitely a sizable amount of care that's going to be going into this. I don't know if that care is going to be good and worth something. Kind of hoping that it does, but that's sort of an update on what's been happening and why my shitty videos have been coming out every 3 days to the probably 2 of you that are watching it this far. Thank you, by the way. So yeah, I'll I don't know if the Steam Workshop of this game is accessible to anybody who doesn't own VX Ace, but I'll put a link of it in the description if you're interested. I'm trying to think of what I missed. So yeah, if you're interested in seeing how this works, maybe you're interested in playing eventually, I will definitely try to keep you posted. I don't know if the timelines are realistic. I don't know if they're going to be met, but we don't technically have any shareholders in the business, so the time frame is whatever the hell we want it to be. But I will try to do my best and stick to the kind of roadmap that I laid out here. Well, I suppose that's it for now. Thank you if you managed to listen to my bullshit for this whole time, and I would love to get something out there for you to play. So until then, take care, and thanks for watching. Toodaloo.